Leslie.
Hi, Mélanie.
Nice to see you again.
So I'm here.
I feel like you could have a passport with all, the stamps from all the webinars that you've attended. So, bonjour Fatia. Hi everyone. Hi Eva, Veronique. Hi everyone. Isabelle, Maria. Menna, I just saw you. Well, not exactly saw you, but talked to you. So we'll have people coming in a little bit. Just be mindful that your mics are open by default, so you might want to close your mics, but please keep your cameras on because it's so much nicer to see faces than little letters. Okay, so let's start this. Oh, I like that, Maria. Oh, we see you now. You were the only one blurred and everyone was in focus. All right, so welcome for today's webinar where we're going to talk about accreditation's benefits and pitfalls. A quick and traditional introduction to Headway Advisory. We are a consulting firm specialized in higher education, and I'm Mélanie Cadart, and I'm in charge of the quality and accreditation department of the firm. And it's my great pleasure today to welcome Amine Moussa, and I will let you introduce yourselves, and then we'll get right onto this very hot topic.
Thank you, Mélanie. Thank you so much. And thank you to Headway and to everyone who took the time and effort to attend today. I'm Amine Moussa. I have a DBA in Higher Education Management from the University of Bath. I'm a researcher in higher education management, and I'm a faculty member in human resource management. And I'm glad to share my research with you today and all the ideas that I have around accreditation.
Yes. So if you could just, so you wrote a book chapter on the
Right.
subject, okay?
Right.
What gave you the idea of
Mhm.
that topic of discussing those benefits and pitfalls of accreditations?
Right. So basically, my motivation to write this book chapter in particular was me seeing that major global trend facing higher education and the pressures for accreditation. So I've been monitoring, I've been observing how schools, business schools, and universities were going after acquiring accreditation, and I wanted to question that. So I've been seeing business schools around the world seeking accreditation and acknowledgement for the effort that they're placing into improving their administration, their curricula, their faculty, students, and establishing their overall standing among competitors. Um, my view was that accreditation has the aim to conform a school to certain quality education, which I think we all agree on, as well as academic management standards. However, it is seen by institutions as enriching the value of their brand and acting as a useful marketing tool that attracts future students and helps in contacts for job placement. So I wanted to place some question marks there. Is it a quality badge or is it a marketing badge?
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to investigate further.
So, yes, and I see we have a lot of accreditation people here today,
Yeah.
and I mean it's our regular audience, obviously. And I think that's a lot of questions that everyone has asked themselves, like, is what we are doing relevant in the sense of its core intention, or are we doing it only for, marketing purposes? So it's great that you're asking the questions. So, yes, that's the question. Are schools who are pursuing ACSB, you talk a lot about ACSB, right, in your
Right.
chapter, more than I would say EQUIS or OMBA, or other accreditation, international accreditations. So, what's your finding? I mean, do schools engaged in those accreditations really do it to improve education, or because not doing, not going after accreditations is too dangerous?
I would actually say that it is increasingly both. I can see some strategic danger behind that motivation. I totally understand that this accreditation in particular improves education and makes the school stand out in a crowded market, makes a secure external validation. But at the same time, I can describe peer review as a mechanism that can provide genuine ideas for improvement. And I'm saying that because the school that I teach at has undergone AACSB and has been accredited now for about 3 years, and I could see the immense positive change that AACSB brought to the school. But I can also see the marketing logic behind it. So there's kind of treating AACSB as a credibility marker that enhances the external image and perceived superiority, which is the case. I mean, schools deserve some superiority due to the effort that they have placed, the effort and time. But sometimes I think of some dynamic where business school accreditations are explicitly used as signals of quality and credibility amid a global competition. So, in all, I would say that AACSB does drive real improvement, but for many schools, it also has become a strategic shield because, as you said in the question, not doing so can be interpreted as some risk in some markets that rely on badges and more badges.
Yes, exactly. And I think that a lot of schools, so at the beginning, it was a few schools, that went for accreditations and tried to get that badge of honor to really distinguish themselves, kind of, sticking out of the pile, kind of.
Right.
Now, I would agree that not having it makes you look like that pit. I mean, you're talking about avoiding pitfalls. Well, here's the pit, not having it. And I think a lot of schools now are pursuing it just to have it like the others. So what does it mean in terms of standardization? So I think it's a little subject further along in our discussion. But if I go back to that, just make sure that you shut your mic for the people joining us. I don't see whose mic is on. Sorry. Yes, I know. I will not say names, but I will shut the. Okay, we're good. Sorry about that. So yes, we were talking about motivations. Do you feel that schools use somehow accreditations as a tool for internal improvement, despite what we've just said about being a marketing tool, about being something to be like the others?
Yeah. Well, I'm 100% sure that ASSB can have dual use or even accreditation in general. But this is to say that it can be an internal improvement mechanism due to the peer review process, due to the quality control. I mean, there is no other way but moving forward and progressing up the scale, right? And it can be used as a tool for external positioning through the branding that it brings. But I think the difference comes down to the intent of the leadership, of the school leadership. So whether ASASB is used to strengthen academic core or to polish the external image to compete in the market. And this is actually the double-edged sword. Are we using it for our own internal good because we want to strengthen ourselves, because we want to strengthen our academic core, academic approaches, or are we using it just for the external image it brings and the competition and all the, let me put it, return on this investment?
Yes, because it costs a lot of money.
Right.
I mean, international accreditations are very expensive. You have the accreditation fees themselves, you have the people you hire to do the job, you have all the new constraints, basically, that you have to abide by. So, yes, that's a lot of money. So, I mean, you were talking about leadership and strategic decisions made by leaders of the institution, the school, whatever. We work with a lot of schools, different schools, and we can tell the difference when it's let's get the accreditation because we need the stamp, or let's get the accreditation because we need to work on who we are and question our processes and the quality and everything. So do you I'm just wondering about what is the key difference between those deans and presidents who will approach that accreditation differently, as the marketing and you've all been there, right? Having that pressure from top management saying, okay, let's get that accreditation, and sometimes not giving you the resources to get there, but they still have the pressure, or deans and directors and presidents that really embark on the journey. So where is the difference? And
yeah.
have you seen that? Have you observed that because I'm guessing that in your research, you've also talked to many different schools.
Yeah.
And so
Actually,
no, go ahead.
Well, what I've observed, I've seen some institutions extending accreditation beyond what it stands for, and that is meeting requirements. And to be more specific, meeting minimum requirements. So if you meet these requirements, you will become accredited, although these requirements are high standards and high requirements. I'm not saying anything about the requirements, but being accredited means meeting minimum requirements. And this sometimes has been used or has been extended by some institutions. It has been used to imply, for example, parity with top-ranked accredited schools, which can mislead stakeholders, right? So you could say that my school and Harvard, just to name some, we have the same accreditation. So here's some parity for our stakeholders. But indeed, it doesn't mean that, right? I mean, every school has its own identity. And we're going to talk about identity later, I think. Every school has its own capacity, has its own resources, and we cannot really compare. So both might have the same accreditation, but that doesn't mean that both are equally powerful or they equally have the same resources, right? And there's another common confusion used in marketing, which I've seen on some university websites while I was doing my research, business school websites to be more specific. And I've seen that some label AACSB membership rather than AACSB accreditation. And I'm sure that you've seen that. So throughout my research, I was checking some of the business school websites, and they would highlight their AACSB membership, which is great, I'm not saying anything, but I think I would place a question mark when AACSB membership is branded as accreditation or is used to mislead stakeholders, future students, the audience in general. And I say, and I'm sure that membership cannot be interpreted as accreditation at all. So in practice, it's usually less a misunderstanding and more a strategic choice in the market.
Yes, actually, I've seen this morning still. I was, writing a quote for potential clients. So going on their website and everything, and I saw that AACSB member, but kind of put on every page, of the website. So I'm sure that it's, yes, a strategic aspect saying, okay, we are part of a club, but I'm pretty sure that sometimes the benefit of the confusion, can also help them. So I'm sure it's both aspects of what you're saying, really. So actually, it would be interesting to. Jean-François says it's all about change management. That, by the way, we're supposed to teach our students. Yes, also definitely. Which leads me to this remark. Please, if you have any thoughts that you want to share or discussion points, please write in the conversation or raise your hand. We can have an open conversation. It's okay. Marine has joined us, but she's no longer part of ACSB, so we can say whatever we want. We have, I saw Oliver Law also from CAP, so that's okay. We have accreditors and ex-accreditors joining us, but it's okay. I mean, it's a general conversation that we have on accreditation, its value, its benefits also. So wondering, ask yourselves this question: if accreditation had no impact on rankings, on reputation, on student recruitment, would your school still pursue it? Would your school still go through all that effort to be or remain accredited?
Yeah, so basically, we could list some hidden unofficial costs. And here I'm not talking about the direct cost, which a school and every school should actually take into consideration whenever they make this big decision, this massive decision. And here we're talking about the real cost that comes from the lengthy reform process, especially if the school is still young, not well established, not well developed. So here you go, you have a lengthy reform process. You have the documentation that sometimes becomes a burden. And I've heard stories from those involved. I mean, this is required. You need to document every change that you're making. You need to document results. You need to have numbers. But at the same time, this is something to consider whenever we decide to get accredited, especially from reputable accreditors as a ACSP. And sometimes this work is not actually rewarded in any promotion criteria. So you have to do the work, we'll get accredited, but you as an individual, this extensive work might not be included in promotion criteria. And these are actually complaints that we've heard, right?
Was it from faculty members? Because
yeah.
A lot of, in French schools, there are a lot of dedicated staff for accreditations, whereas abroad we see more of faculty members with the extra charge of ASCSB
Absolutely.
or whatever accreditation they're going after.
Yeah. Faculty members, right? However, the assurance of learning in ASCSB sometimes also reports institutional struggles and the risk of accountability, which demanding outpacing capacity. So this is to say that accreditation and ASCSB, because this is the topic of our discussion, really requires muscles and big muscles. So it requires proper calculation for the school into which waters they're tapping into, if I may say that.
Yep, totally agree. So if we go now into the really the technical task of the accreditation, you talked about documentation. That's a heavy one, right? And I think, I mean, I would also be interested hearing from the audience here about still the benefits of extra documentation, because usually, when you start an accreditation, you realize that, oh my God, we don't have all those documents that you're asking for. We don't take minutes of our meetings. We don't have handbooks for this or that, So do you at some point agree that it's beneficial from the school to have processes, to formalize processes, formalize documents? I would be interested to hear from the audience here, and also, I mean, from the research that you've conducted.
Well, I'll go first, if I may. I think that I've seen, and I mentioned that in the research, I've seen some tension, some threshold between being good versus looking good. Meaning when leaders shift attention from the academic core to brand polishing and the like. And when you're talking about documentation in particular, such accreditations, they require heavy documentation, which is time consuming, which is effort consuming, and which at times changes the whole habit of how work is conducted at the school, right? So as you just said, we don't take minutes, we don't keep records. I mean, not taking minutes and not keeping records, I'm not really a fan of that, right? No one is. But then comes the certain ways of taking minutes and of keeping records, and how much how much records need to be kept and how many minutes need to be taken. Every single thing needs to be documented. So this is the burden that we're talking about. So that's a whole load of work on top of your current work.
Yes.
I'd like to hear from the audience if anyone has a say.
It's about the extra work and about yes, the extra work definitely, but also the benefits of it, you know, because sometimes it's too demanding. Like you said, if we having minutes for every single meeting that we have, or a document framing every single decision we make, or I mean, I understand the quality process behind all this, and it's important that you have proof to demonstrate all that. But I would say, regardless of the accreditation, it's still something that's important to have in a school to some extent, you know. So we had a comment earlier from Vasily, who said, I remember a number of major institutions that did not want to go for accreditations because it is constraining. They perceived these as intrusive and harmless standardizing, which is a different topic that we're going to cover. Interestingly, some ended up being accredited and are very happy with that. It would actually be interesting to know what criteria makes them happy. You know, is it just being accredited, or is this also because of what we're saying here? It helps the schools organize its quality processes, you know? It's something that I've heard a lot with clients, mostly starting in accreditations, say, oh my God, I'm so glad we're doing that. It's a lot of work, but I'm so glad we're doing that because finally we're organizing things. You know, it forces each service of the school to take a look at what they're doing and see that, you know, sometimes you just one finger in the wind of doing things. And so it's very structuring for people. Elizabeth?
Basically, the question is,
sorry.
I'm sorry. It's just the delay. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was going to say, I think you have to ask yourself at a strategic level, are you doing things just for the accreditation, or are the accreditations serving you? Is it a tool that you use to do what you would do anyway, but do it better, or do it more efficiently, or do it in a way that allows you to have a perspective that maybe you didn't have before? And I think you have to, when we talk about the value of accreditation and the decision for a school to go for accreditation or not, or to continue or not, that has to be at the beginning of the discussion. Is what is it really going to serve for you, and not you're just trying to do it to get in a ranking or to you know. And if that purpose is not something that's shared at a strategic level, and that vision of the usefulness of accreditation is not shared at the strategic level, I think it's really hard for anyone who's working in accreditation to make that happen, if that kind of collective agreement is not there at the beginning.
Yes, I totally agree. Thank you, Elizabeth. I mean, you want to
I agree as well with Elizabeth. Thank you for that input. And I'd add to that that at some point during this accreditation process, we'd be asking ourselves, are we producing evidence for ourselves, or are we producing evidence for the reviewers? I mean, are we doing all the work for the reviewers to be satisfied, or are we really benefiting ourselves? Which is basically what you said, right?
Yes, I bet. Elizabeth, I completely agree. And I think that initial question about the why, you know, why are we doing this, changes the way it's going to happen, and the way and also how painful the process is going to be, you know, because if you see the strategic value in it, then it helps the various teams understand why, because there's a why then, you know. Oliver, you wanted to react?
Yeah, thank you. So I mean, I represent the UK, the Chartered Association of Business Schools in the UK. So my view is very much within the context of UK business schools, and across our members, we have several schools who have accreditations, some triple, and many who choose not to have accreditations. But one of the things which I think sits behind a school's reason why a school would value accreditation, it goes to that point about continuous improvement, but more specifically, in the UK, and it may just be a UK thing, business schools are part of parent institutions, they're part of parent universities. And so a value of going for accreditation, having an accreditation, but going for accreditation, is that the process of accreditation or the process of reaccreditation can force and give the opportunity for some, maybe those difficult internal conversations, or those conversations that a business school dean or business school would have with its parent institution about its mission, about its identity, and it can give power to the elbow. It's a British expression, which means sort of it gives you sort of the power to do the things you may want to do, and it gives you that sort of authority to go to your university vice chancellor and say, well, these are the things we need to do for our accreditation. And there's a sort of it's that internal value as well as sort of the external value, and sort of and say certainly in the UK, a lot of what business schools can and can't do is driven by what the parent institution is, and largely that's can be down to the extent to which the VC or the university senior leadership team know or do not know about what's special about business schools. So that thing of accreditations can sort of wake those senior leadership teams up to business schools and what business schools are, not just within the UK but also internationally. So I think there's that internal value as well as any sort of external benefits.
Right.
Yes, thank you, Oliver. And I think I agree. We've seen that also, schools or people within schools using accreditation as like the one argument to get things done, Well, we need that because, the accreditation requires it. And sometimes they even add a little personal message to it. Yeah, so it's funny because it can be used at different levels, but making the higher institution, like the top mother institution, better understand also the workings of the business schools, yes, and the strategy behind it is interesting, yes. So thank you. So we were talking about faculty, right? With the extra work in a lot of institutions where faculty is in charge of accreditation, so on top of teaching, on top of research. And so this actually leads me to research, because if we talk about faculty, research, and accreditation, now there's kind of a forced alignment that was maybe not very natural to begin with, because I know many schools where, research topics were basically the responsibility of the researcher. But accreditation requires that your research focus is aligned with your strategy. I mean, it makes sense, right? But for some schools, it's not that evident. So what's the main changes with faculty outcomes, with ACSB accredited schools? What does it change for faculty?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you. Let me start with this. We know that what gets measured gets prioritized, and that happens in every performance evaluation. So what really gets measured will become prioritized. And in our case, we're talking about research, publication, research output. That begs the question, when focusing on publication output, are we pulling the attention away from the core academic work, which sometimes can be teaching? So the question becomes, do faculty qualifications and research productivity at some point lower their teaching level or take away from their time to focus on teaching? That's a very critical question, which some were not able to answer, because there you are, you have very good teachers, very good teaching skills, but some of them might now need to conduct research and as you've mentioned, some aligned research, they will be focusing and putting their effort and time on their research volume and research output, especially for promotions. But what happens with the teaching? Are we really monitoring the teaching outcome? Are we really prioritizing teaching? Is teaching getting measured?
Well, actually, with the upcoming 2026 standards for ACSB, there will be a focus on teaching,
Exactly.
like more
Exactly.
teaching impact. There was, the big thing was assurance of learning, and now maybe it will be assurance of teaching,
Teaching.
Yes. But I think it's good because it was kind of a gray area, not gray area, but there was not that much demonstration about it. And also the difference in the qualifications criteria for faculty changes also, So it will be also a criteria of teaching impact, which I find very interesting. And I'm curious.
Much needed.
Yes, much needed. And I'm very curious to see how schools will actually measure that, and how they will approach the subject. So I think it's a very interesting change that will force schools and institutions to look at, okay, what really happens in teaching, and what is our requirements? What are our requirements, So I'm looking forward to seeing the first results of that. Vasilia was asking a question in the conversation, asking you, what about yourself? What do you get from accreditations? Has your personal position about them changed over the years?
Well, let me first start by saying that AACSB accreditation in particular has really advanced the school that I teach at. Extremely positive about that. But I have to say, and I have to mention the extra work, the extra burden that comes with it, the extra publishing, which is, again, I could say that is a positive thing because you'd have more faculty members doing more research and research with a target, research that is high ranking, elite research, which really reflects good on the school. So I can say that I'm fond of accreditations, but at the same time, I have to look at the other side. I have to have a fair view towards accreditations. So, I wouldn't directly run after an accreditation, run after getting accredited and going through all that burden and effort and time. But I'd rather do my calculation. I'd rather check all the requirements and make sure that I have the proper capacity and the proper support.
Good. We have a question from Eric asking, I'd love to hear about Amine's thoughts about the new standards. What does he like? Is there anything not to like about the substance or the change process? What are the changes that will most impact business schools? So did you take a look at the new standards, Amine?
Yeah, I did. And as you mentioned, it really caught my attention that teaching standard or the teaching measurement that they say, teaching output. That thought of having teaching become part of the whole idea. And I think that this is a big advancement, and it covers that gap that I was talking about, where teaching was not really measured or was not really prioritized. And we know, from other research, we know that proper excellent researchers don't really make proper excellent teachers. These two are not linked. So you would previously you would end up with very good researchers just because you need good researchers at the school, but they don't necessarily they don't make good teachers. I think with this new standard, with this new thinking, you'd have to acquire someone with capacity in the two skills, teaching and research as well. Will it make it harder to find these? I don't know. We're yet to see.
Yes. Or will you have one ratio for teaching skills and one ratio for publishing skills? I don't know. It's going to be difficult to keep and measure. So talking about research again, do you feel that a lot of faculty publish for compliance purposes, or and not knowledge creation.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen that, and I mentioned that in my research that sometimes publishing can become, as you mentioned, a compliance mechanism. We have to publish because we need to comply, rather than we have to publish because we need to create knowledge, we need to find solutions, we need to find original thinking, we need to provide, we need to advance practice, we need to advance knowledge, we need to advance policy. Sometimes it ends up just becoming a compliance mechanism, as you said, and we tend to sacrifice originality and diversity because these are reduced, I mean, knowingly or not knowingly, by the narrow journal ranking logics. At the end of the day, you need to publish in certain journals, you need to attain certain ranking, and the intensives, the incentives, they tend to demotivate the teaching-focused faculty. So we know that there are some faculty who are teaching-focused, and these don't get anything from the research. So what's there for them? Yeah.
So this can lead to a cultural shift within the institution, which leads us to, I would say, one of the most controversial aspects of this conversation, isomorphism and standardization.
Right.
That's a tough one. So you use that term, isomorphism. Can you tell us more about what you've observed?
Yeah. So basically, when we discuss isomorphism, we're observing similarities that are growing in number. So you have two different institutions growing to become very similar. And this stems from what you just mentioned, that what is measurable becomes rewarded. What is measurable becomes important. So let's do what's required. Let's have those measurements ready. And by doing so, and by pushing towards that direction, we are actually sometimes compressing diversity across the institutions. And like it or not, we tend to end up having many similarities. I don't want to say identical, that's not the case, but we tend to have many similarities among the different institutions, which actually justifies why I used isomorphism. Yes, accreditation raises the bar, raises the floor, which is safer for every institution that gets accredited. But at the same time, it might risk encouraging this isomorphism becoming more similar. But that, again, depends on how rigidly the schools interpret their compliance. So do we want to comply with these standards, with these requirements, word to word, because we're afraid of losing the accreditation? So let's do exactly what that requires. And doing so makes you end up in a very similar position or similar shape to other institutions when you take things literally, right?
Yes, I think the most obvious example of that is schools' missions. Because you all have the same keywords, whenever you look at a mission. So you all have responsible managers, globalization, all these terms. And at the same time, you have accreditors asking you to be distinctive. So it's, okay, you need to address all the challenges of the world and yet be distinctive. So I would say that if you're a school based by the seashore near a port, okay, you can be very distinctive about your impact on, working on water, on logistics. If you have something very distinctive where the school is located, it's easier.
Right.
If you're in the middle of nowhere with no specific industry, no specific, I would say, communities' needs or whatever, it becomes much harder. And for a lot of schools, it's more difficult. So ACSB, in that sense, encourages schools to demonstrate their distinctiveness, but at the same time, still have those standards and criteria that kind of force schools to go a direction. And actually, I just want to say something more about this because it's always funny. I think ACSB is the accreditation that provides the most leeway for schools to express their true identity and argue for, you know, what they're doing and why they're doing it and how they're doing it and what's the impact of it in the end. So that's very interesting. And at the same time, schools tend to complain that it's not prescriptive enough. So, you know, it's a little bit schizophrenic, you know, like, let us be who we want to be, but please tell us what to do, you know?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, so I'm also wondering, I know a lot of the schools that are attending today, but how do you address that distinctiveness? Especially, I see, you know, we have a lot of French business schools, so we have the same economic field, battlefield. So how do you address the distinction, and especially when you have several campuses? I mean, Elizabeth, you have many campuses in your school, so how do you do that?
It's really hard.
That's the
It's funny
conclusion.
because I was a little bit late to this meeting because I just came out of a meeting about our strategy.
Oh.
Where I was saying, here I have 3 reaccreditations coming up this year. I need to write about the strategy. Let's talk about what makes us distinctive.
There you go.
You can imagine it's been on my mind all morning.
Oh, yes.
No, I think it's really hard. I mean, something that I found that was really useful for me, we went through the BSIS process last year. I don't know if there's some schools here that have done it. I found that the way that the BSIS looks at the way a school is anchored in its local region, and some of the indicators that we don't typically report on for accreditation that come up through this process. For me, it brought up a lot of things that we could be using as distinctiveness points that maybe we're not currently making enough use of or exploiting as we should. So I think it can help to, obviously it's at a strategic level. You've got to have, you've got to go through the exercise of looking at, okay, who are we really as a school? What is our unique selling point? What is it that makes us distinctive? But I think a lot of it, you have to look at the history of a school, and you have to look at what are we really bringing to the communities that we're serving. So for me, having that kind of an external tool to look at things from a perspective that maybe we haven't always used for accreditation was really useful.
Good, thank you. So now we're getting close to the final question. Is it really worth it? You know? So what's your conclusion? I mean, in your chapter, how did you conclude?
Yeah. So basically, the conclusion that I came to from my research was advising mid-tier and mid-tier schools or small schools to really seek ACSB accreditation because it is powerful. The badge is really there. The marketing that one can benefit from after being ACSB accredited is immense. But really knowing about the real costs that lie in the reforms, in the faculty hiring. So not to forget that you need to hire good caliber, you need to hire good faculty so that you can maintain and sustain the accreditation. The documentation burdens and not just the fees. So we're letting the fees talk about themselves. And but at the same time, these demands, I'd say that they might disrupt teaching mission models of institutions. That is to say, if the institution, if the school is teaching focused, not necessarily research focused, I don't think that ASSB is the right and proper way to go because the school is, as we've said, teaching focused, and this is one of their mission, and that's totally acceptable, right? But at the same time, and I read that in my chapter, if the school is well established, is well founded, has its name well marketed, a very reputable name. The question remains, do they really need AACSB or any other accreditation? We're just mentioning AACSB because that's the focus of my chapter. But the question is, if I'm well known, if I'm a very reputable institution, do I really need a badge to qualify me, or do I really need a badge to prove my value to other stakeholders? Or am I the one who proves my value? Is my name the value, or is the badge the value?
That's a tough question. And I think it also circles back to what we said at the beginning, saying that having it maybe doesn't, provide that much benefit or difference or whatever, but not having it is seen
Right.
as, a sign of weakness. And we know that students and parents don't know the first thing about accreditations. They don't know what's behind an AACSB accreditation, a French visa or EFMD, whatever. They just see, all right, that school has 3, that school has none. All right, I'll go with the school that, has 3 because it has to be better, So it's tough. And I actually like Jean-François's first comment earlier when he said one of our schools in engineering wanted to get out of the French accreditation. So Jean-François is in Belgium because they felt it wasn't worth the effort anymore. Students and parents made them keep on. So the view of the stakeholders actually influence a lot. You can never get out.
Once you're in, you can't get out, sorry.
Yeah. So what are you saying? You said AACSB's updated global standards are meant to be used by any institution wishing to better themselves, whether they pursue accreditations or not. That is true, and thank you for pointing that out. They're not accreditation standards anymore. They're global standards. Obviously, the final idea is that at some point they will see that, okay, the standards are good if we apply them. Well, why not go for the accreditation? So that's pretty smart to make it global, like benefit for the whole educational world. But in the end, obviously, if people meet the standards, they will go for the accreditation. So, yes. Are there any other comments, questions? I think let me see if I have other questions. I think we've provided a lot of answers and kind of common knowledge also, but good thinking points. Are the accredited schools here thinking that it was worth the effort? Because in the end, do you feel that, yes, is it the return on investment? I think also is a good question to ask. So what do you think, guys? It depends if they have to apply for a loan to pursue accreditation. Yes, for you. Yes, depending on the country, it might be the case. And I was telling Amine while preparing the webinar that if we ask too strongly the question of is it worth it, then a lot of accreditation people might feel irrelevant.
I mean, it's not a yes or no, right? I mean,
yes, exactly. It's not a yes
absolutely.
or no. I constantly grapple with this question, and I'm not sure I've got a clear answer. I think I agree with you, Andrea. It's just there's no clear answer because we see the benefits, we see the downfall of not having it. If it was okay not being accredited, not that many schools would go for it, and because it's exponential now. And I was attending the MENA conference last week in Tunis, and there are so many schools in the Middle East and North Africa that are, getting started in accreditation. That's crazy. So you feel that it just keeps on growing. And Elizabeth could say, I think a lot depends on the context of the school. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I couldn't agree more. So, well, I think this is the end of this webinar. I'm really glad that we had that conversation that was very interesting. Thank you everyone for your input. I think it was a fun webinar. Not too technical, but I have feel like talking with friends and discussing accreditations. Actually, it's the type of conversations that we can have among ourselves during conferences or something like that. So it was great having you. The next webinar is in 2 weeks. It will be in French, and it will address the issue of digital diplomas and certifications and the blockchain aspect of securing those diplomas. So it's an upcoming European law that will be implemented in 2027. So schools, get ready. Thank you very much. Okay, well, there was a comment from Andrea again, but we are also conforming to what has now become the norm, which is the more philosophical question I think about. That is true, and that was also the isomorphism we were talking about. Thank you very much, and talk to you soon. Thank you, Amine, for taking the time to be with us.
Thanks a lot.
And enjoy lunch. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.